Good evening, everyone. We're calling this meeting to order. Please note that members Lucas Alves, Susan Benjamin, who's committee vice chair, Jeffrey Clark, and Kathy McDonald are on this call. And I don't see David. And that's it. And myself, who is chair of the committee. And can we play the land acknowledgement, please?
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
Thank you for that. Okay, may I have a motion that the Curriculum, Equity, and Student Wellbeing Committee approve the agenda of February 12th, 2025. Moved by Trustee Benjamin?
Yes.
Second by Trustee McDonald? Okay, is there any discussion? No? All right, all in favor? So moved. All right. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest? Was that your hand, Lucas? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on. Approval of the previous minutes. May I have a motion for that the Curriculum and Equity Student and Wellbeing Committee approve the minutes of the December 10th, 2024 meeting? Trustee Alves, you're moving that motion, and seconded by Trustee Clark. Is there any discussion for that meeting? Seeing none, all in favor? So moved. There are no delegations this meeting, so we're going to move on to staff reports, which is item number 7.1. which is Advancing Education Innovation in PDSB. And this is for information, which is going to be presented by Tony Mosconi.
Hello, good evening. I'm here to present our Leap and Spark project. And while I read, we're just going to share some of the work through a video that will be playing in the background. So we're here to talk about two projects, the Leading Education Innovation Project, otherwise known as LEAP, and we have our Spark project, which is student-centered, progressive, it's augmented, relevant, and contains knowledge building. These two initiatives are transformative, and their efforts are aligned with our Peel District School Board multi-year strategic plan, student achievement, safety and well-being, equity and inclusion, and community engagement. Over this past school year, there have been over 200 LEAP projects across 170 schools, engaging over 4,000 students and 200 educators. Our Spark sessions, they've also complemented this by delivering over 50 professional learning series, reaching over 5,000 students and 200 educators. These programs are grounded in frameworks such as Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, and culturally responsive and relevant practices, CRRP. with data showing 85% of participating schools reporting improved student engagement and achievement, and 15% increase in math and science scores for the lead participants from historically marginalized groups. The initiatives have increased achievement through interdisciplinary, experiential learning, high-fidelity teaching and learning practices. Impact reports are included in our PBSB internal biweekly publication, our EdTech Innovation magazine. Accountability measures are also built into all projects for schools to demonstrate impact on student outcomes by year end. Financial investments of $600,000 for LEAP and $80,000 for Spark, supplemented by over $50,000 in-kind donations, supported resources such as robotics kits, professional learning workshops, and adaptive technologies, to name a few. Key outcomes included over 90% participant satisfaction rate, where participants indicated that it met or exceeded expectations and that educators were able to apply the learning directly to their practice. There were also expanded equity-focused initiatives like coding workshops for historically marginalized students. Some examples were Black Girls Who Code, Girls in Skilled Trades, among a few, and increased collaboration with over 100 community and industry partners. Next steps will focus on scaling high-impact projects, strengthening professional learning in emerging technologies such as AI and sustainability, and scaling the work. Some upcoming events are hosting the second annual Technology-Enabled Learning Symposium later this month on February 26th at CBO, and hosting our third annual LEAP Symposium in June to celebrate achievements and offer cross-district networking opportunities for all participants. These initiatives continue to advance the board's commitment to equity and innovation, ensuring that all students are prepared for a globally competitive future. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. That's the Curriculum Equity Student Wellbeing Committee. I think we should receive it. And so can we have a motion? Trustee Benjamin?
Yeah.
Seconded by Trustee Clark. Is there any questions?
Yeah, my hand is up.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not a question. I just want some information because I saw something on a sewing studio. And when you talk of sewing, it's all you use your hands, to stitch different designs, etc., etc. And of course, the sewing machine. But how is, EML and sewing connected?
So sewing would be it's generally a precursor to skill trades. So when we talk about innovation, it's there's the technology component to it, but then there's also the hands-on. So we would see sewing. We would also see hand tools that students would use to be able to engage in the experiential learning. And some schools, we have fabrication labs where the sewing is part of it. And then that would we start in elementary schools, and then after would support them when they move on to high school and go into those skill trades programs.
Thank you. I'm so glad I had a sewing class when I was in school.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Oh, seeing none. All in favor? So moved. All right, so received. 7.2, de-streaming the progress report for information only, presented by Lara Shabaro.
Good evening, everybody, and I hope you can hear me. Our internet is in and out this evening, so all good? Perfect. All right. And I'm here to present the de-streaming progress update report in collaboration with Dr. Lynn Hollingshead, who will be also presenting sections of the report to all of you. At this point, I am going to simply present an update to de-streaming as per Directive 19. And we remain, as a Peel District School Board, steadfast in our commitment to ensuring that we address disproportionalities, promoting equity and inclusion through our ongoing de-streaming initiatives. We know that meaningful change takes time, but we are happy to report this evening that we are seeing significant emerging positive trends across various measures that suggest that the board's continued work that's intentional and deliberate in the area of de-streaming is making an impact and a tangible difference in student outcomes. The positive trends that you will be seeing this evening are a result of the sustained actions as well as the learning that we are engaging in on an ongoing basis. And of course, this is all happening in community, in collaboration and support from our educators, our instructional leaders, our associate directors, and our community. This momentum is sustained and continues because of the committed collaboration in this initiative with all of us. PDSB, our focus is clear. Our goal is to ensure that all students thrive in an inclusive and equitable learning environment. Next slide, please. In order to meet Directive 19, PDSB took extreme measures to ensure that the disparities and disproportionate outcomes in student achievement and experiences are eliminated. And the timeline and the key work completed in support of this work are articulated in this slide. The work started in 2020, folks, and many of you were there with us and some of you were not, but you have heard and read in the reports all the work that we have been doing from 2020, and it's ongoing, and our focus around de-streaming has not changed. Next slide, please. The success of de-streaming is dependent on the instructional strategies that our educators deliver in classrooms for our students. And this is done through the use of curriculum instruction that is conducted to high fidelity. Beginning in February 2021, intentional professional learning opportunities were offered to our educators. Since then, there was interrupted, this professional learning, due to COVID, but we picked up speed right after that and we continued the work. Since then, professional learning opportunities were done in collaboration and in conjunction with resources that were shared across the system in a variety of ways, as well as through professional learning that was offered to our educators in a variety of models. So on the screen in front of you today is just a sample of the plethora of opportunities and the types of resources that are available to PDSB educators as well as our administrators. Next slide, please. Providing professional learning and resources requires us to ensure that change is happening and that student outcomes are improving. As such, we needed to ensure that we had tools to monitor the work, to ensure that it is impacting our de-streaming efforts. On the screen in front of you is just a simple set of tools, not all of them, but just a few that we've been using to monitor our growth and our impact. The Equity and Accountability Report Card, which is public, we shared that in November with everybody. Our student census data that we will be engaging in shortly and re-updating that. School Equity Audit Tool that is used by all of our schools on an ongoing basis. Our School Improvement and Equity Planning Tool, which is also used monthly by our administrators. And of course, all the digital resources that we use that support de-streaming efforts across the system. Next slide, please. When we put in place learning opportunities and monitoring implementation measures, we need to set goals to see what it is that the change is that we're monitoring for. So the following are some of the goals that were set to ensure that we are actually engaging and impacting de-streaming. So these 4 measures that are on the screen are simply meant to demonstrate the type of goal setting that we've engaged in. So our goal was to reduce disproportionality indices for marks below 70% to less than 1.5. We wanted to increase disproportionality indices for marks 70 and above to 0.8 or greater. We wanted to reduce disproportionality indices for college track, grade 11 math, to less than 1.5. And we wanted to increase disproportionality indices for university track, grade 11 math, to 0.8 or greater. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Hollingshead to share with us the data in greater detail.
Thank you, Superintendent Chavarro. You're able to hear me okay? If you go to next slide, please. This figure shows the disproportionality index for the 3 de-streaming pilot schools. The bars represent the disproportionate outcomes of students by racial background not meeting the provincial standard, that is, marks below 70, in grade 9 open mathematics, or MTH1W. I draw your attention to the African Black and Afro-Caribbean student outcomes. In the school years from 2021-22 to 2023-24, the disproportionality indices are 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. The interpretation would be in 2023-24, Black students were 1.5 times more likely to not reach the provincial standard than expected. As per the guidance from the ministry in regards to the directives, I'm also going to share with you the corresponding disparity indices for these particular outcomes. The disparity index is calculated by dividing the disproportionality index of the group of interest by the disproportionality index of a reference group. The Anti-Racism Directorate data standards, which guides our work in using both of these indices, recommends that the reference group be the group that experiences the most privilege, that is, white students. The corresponding disparity indices for African Black and Afro-Caribbean students are 1.1, 1.3, and 1.3. The trend for the disproportionality outcomes is increasing and has not yet met the goal of less than 1.5. The trend for disparity indices meets the goal of less than 1.5. For First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students in 2023-24, the disproportionality index is 1.8 and the disparity index is 1.5. There is insufficient data to identify a trend. Next slide, please. This figure shows the disproportionality index again for the 3 de-streaming pilot schools. The bars represent the disproportionate outcomes of students by racial background. This time the measure represents students who did meet the provincial standard, that is, marks at 70 or above, in grade 9 open mathematics, or MTH1W. For African Black and Afro-Caribbean students, school years 2021-22 to 2023-24, the disproportionality indices are 0.7, 0.7, and 0.6. The corresponding disparity indices, again, the reference group is white students, are 0.9, 0.7, and 0.8. The trend for the disproportionality outcomes did not meet the goal of 0.8 or higher. However, the disparity indices suggest that this goal was met. For First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students, the disproportionality index is 0.5, disparity index 0.6. Again, there is insufficient data to identify a trend. Next slide, please. This figure also shows the disproportionality index for the 3 de-streaming pilot schools. The bars represent the disproportionate outcomes of students by racial background. This time, the measure represents students who enrolled in grade 11 college track courses. For African Black and Afro-Caribbean students, school years 2019-20 to 2023-24, the disproportionality indices for students taking a college track grade 11 mathematics course are 1.5, 1.3, 1.5, 1.5, and 1.5. This would be interpreted as Black students are 1.5 times overrepresented in college track math courses. The corresponding disparity indices are 0.8, 1.0, 1.2, 1.1, and 1.0. The trend for the disproportionality outcomes did not meet the goal of less than 1.5. However, the disparity outcomes are well below the goal of 1.5. Outcomes for First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students are suppressed due to small numbers. And next slide, please. Again, this slide shows outcomes for the three de-streaming pilot schools. The bars represent disproportionate outcomes of students by racial background. This time, the measure represents students who enrolled in grade 11 university track courses. For African, Black, and Afro-Caribbean students, school years 2019-20 to 2023-24, the disproportionality indices of students taking a university track grade 11 mathematics course are 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, and 0.9. The corresponding disparity indices are 1.1, 1.0, 1.0, 1.1, and 1.0. The trend for both the disproportionality and disparity outcomes suggests that the three pilot schools met goal 4. Outcomes for First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students are suppressed due to small numbers. I now turn it back to Superintendent Chavarro.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hollingshead. Appreciate your time and your commitment to identifying the data for us and ensuring that it is accurately reflected in the work that we do. Again, the work that we do, we are committed to de-streaming efforts and addressing disproportionalities and in this case, disparity data in order to ensure that our students receive equitable outcomes for pathways towards success. It is important, folks, to recognize that changes in education, especially at this degree, take time and are significant and require the collaborative efforts of everybody involved. And with that, we are grateful and thankful for the work and the commitment of all of our educators, our staff, and our community to engage us in the work. And we continue to be in solidarity with the de-streaming efforts, and we continue the hard work. Open to questions.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. So before we get to questions, let's do that first part. So may I have the motion that the Curriculum Equity Student and Wellbeing Committee receive the de-streaming progress report? Trustee Benjamin, you're moving that motion, and can I have someone to second it? Trustee McDonald, you're seconding that?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Questions? I see Trustee Al's hands well up.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. I put my hand up in the middle of the report because I don't know that we're speaking to the same document. I'm looking at the full package agenda for this evening, and I don't have any of the data that was sent in this package. I do have 3 charts titled Appendix 1, 2, and 3. Appendix 1, Table 1 is the comparative course registration data, 2018, 2019, 23, and 24. Is this the same data that we were describing over the call? Because it looked quite different for me. I'm just wondering if that was just the illustration, but it read different for me as well.
Thank you for that question, Trustee Els. The data that Dr. Hollingshead was sharing with you is recent data. We did not have it at the time of the report when it was created. We apologize. We're doing things as quickly as we can. We can definitely share this data with you as an addendum. Okay, thank you. And through you, Chair, I'd almost wonder if we want to consider deferring this to the next section. So to the next curriculum committee meeting, so that trustees have the opportunity to digest the data and produce questions for it, because I wasn't able to. I do have questions about the data before me in the report that I have, but it wasn't covered in the session, so I'm not sure that it would be appropriate to speak to, given it wasn't covered. So over to you, Chair.
Okay, I hear you, Lucas. Let's hear what others have to say about that. Okay, Trustee Clark.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have to say I do concur with Trustee Al's assessment. My I do have a question for about the data sets that we were shown tonight over the call. I believe it was like section 3 or art item 3. It showed well, I don't have the image in front of me right now, but I just noted that there was no data for Hispanic students. So I'm wondering where there was in previous, information. But I'm just wondering why is that? Were they just not available for comment, or yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Trustee Clark. Can I turn it over to Dr. Hollingshead for a response about our Latinx community?
Yes. So the figure that you were speaking to, number 3, was the about the disproportionality index for students taking college track courses. The numbers are suppressed so I did mention in the speaking notes that we had there was insufficient data for First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students. It is the same situation for the Latin, how did we say, their Latinx Hispanic group.
Okay, and then can I have a follow-up? What would be the cause of that? Yeah, that insufficiency in data.
Few number of students in the cohorts. So the population of Latinx Hispanic students in Peel is less than 1% of our entire population. And now you're talking about grade 11, and then you're talking about grade 11 students taking college track math, and then you're talking about kids who took college track math who told us about their racial identity. So you start to get a smaller number. And so in this case, there would have been less than 10 students in each school year.
Okay. Thank you for cleaning it up. I appreciate it.
So, Luke, Trustee Alice, you have your hand up again?
Yes, Ms. Chairwoman, thank you very much. And through you, Chair, so I would like to propose a motion to defer the report to our next student curriculum and well-being session with where we can have the data in front of us so that trustees can disseminate and digest the information before us so we can produce questions for the public, because the data before me wasn't the data that was covered in the report. I won't be able to speak to it knowledgeably.
If somebody just second.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, so here's my other question. Does this report, if we put it over, does this impact any other reports or any other anything else at the board?
I can respond to that question. Trustee Bailey, I have no problems bringing the report, and I sincerely apologize for not adding it. This is a celebratory opportunity to share with you that we have met many of the goals that have been set, and I apologize for not including them. The tables, Trustee Elves and Trustee Clark, that are included in the report, the appendices, we felt are simply ones to demonstrate that action has impacted, and the reference around the success rate was in the report. But we wanted to augment it with these amazing pieces of data. But absolutely, we will offer the data sets for you next time so that we could all ask those amazing questions to demonstrate the great work that's happening. Sincere apologies, but respectfully, we will bring it back. No problem.
Thank you. All right, so all in agreement? Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. So, then where is Jasmine? Do we have to, because we had put it on the floor And then we amended that. Do we have to do something else after that, Jasmine? Is Jasmine on the
It
call?
has to be approved. It has to be approved by the trustees.
We just did all, did
Yes.
all in favor. He
Yeah.
just, thing seconded.
But, excuse me, but we are not approving the receipt of it because we want it to come back. So we're deferring it to the next
To
meeting.
defer, yeah.
Right, so he seconded, and I just
Yep.
asked if everyone is in favor, and
So it's, so it'll be deferred to the next meeting.
Yes.
So, Carla,
yeah,
if you don't mind, okay, so here's, you have to call all three, even though, everybody might be voting, you still have to ask those, against deferring. You make sure you action that, okay, and those that are abstaining. And then you move to say, okay, all right, because the majority vote, to, defer, then that's what carries. Okay, it's because
Okay.
it has to be in the record that you did all the necessary pieces. Okay.
thank you. That's why I was asking for Jasmine. Okay, so those opposed of deferring? Seeing no opposition? Any abstaining? Kathy, what was your vote? Where's Kathy?
I was in support of it.
That's what I
said
thought I
yes.
heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we agreed to defer.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving, so what happens to the first motion?
Sorry, through you, Chairwoman. Chair Bailey, the motion stands. There's only one motion, and it was to defer it to the next
Defer.
session. So you've already procured
Deferred.
a seconder. You've called the vote. You can move on to continuation of board business.
That's what I thought. All right, so number 8.
And excuse me, Chair, just so that it's clear what the it is, I was in support of the deferral.
Yes, I said
Yes.
that.
Yeah, okay. No, I said it. I just wanted to make sure, yeah, my it was clear. Thanks.
You're welcome. Moving to number 8. No communications. Number 9, no trustee motions for considerations. And no trustee notices of motions. May I have a motion for adjournment? Trustee Alves, and seconded by Trustee Clark. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good night. Those of you who have to drive safe. See you all soon.